In this new video lesson, we're going to explore more about materials in ENSCAPE for Archicad. So in the previous video, we saw that we can select, inspect the various elements in Archicad and understand which material is applied onto them, and then we can modify it in ENSCAPE. And we have also libraries that we can use, and we have a sample files that we can explore from ENSCAPE to understand what are the materials in there. So the most important panels for materials are the libraries that we can just check and see if there is something we like. We can put favorites, we can explore, and everything is well organized in 2 categories. And then we have the material editor, where we can actually work on the materials, modify them, find them, and customize them. So this is what we're going to see in this lesson. We're going to see how we can create our customized material. And also we can get it from the menu, of course, in an ENSCAPE menu or from the ENSCAPE toolbar. We don't have them in the ENSCAPE window, but we do have other tools that we saw and that we're going to continue to explore in the following videos. So in this video, we're not going to spend too much time in this toolbar in the ENSCAPE window, but we're going to talk about materials. So first of all, PBR materials, what are they? They are physically based render materials. So they simulate what happens in reality in terms of the reaction of an object to the light. That's the bottom line here. So in the real world, the light hits a surface of an object, and that surface responds in a specific way. Now that response, that reaction is based on channels or maps that we find in a material. So a material is essentially a combination or a collection of effects that we can get with standard parameters, like for example a simple color, or we can get using textures. Now if we use textures, we're going to have more realism, more realistic results. Otherwise, and also they're also going to be a little bit more heavy than not using the textures. So what are the textures? Really quick. Well, the first one, the most important, is called the diffuse or albedo. If you have this, you can manage to create the material in a kind of a realistic fashion. Now, it's better that you have also the roughness texture, which is essentially the way that the material reacts again to the light in terms of does it reflect like a concentrated beam of light, or does it like scatter the rays around? And you can use this also in reflections and refraction. And also you can search for glossiness, because roughness is the opposite of glossiness. And you can just search by image if you want to have an idea. Now the other important one is the normal or the bump, which represents a fake 3D effect on the surface. Now this can change radically the aspect of a material, and it can make it become way more realistic than if we don't use it. And also you can use the displacement, which is similar. And then we have other types like the opacity or cutout or transparency, if you want to make something like transparent or semi-transparent or totally invisible. And these are the main ones. Then we have also metalness or metallic, which gives the information if the material is a metal, or where is a metal or not metal. And then we have specularity. Now in nature, we can search for like textures by textures, by the way. Now in nature, we have a situation where a material is either metal or non-metal. There is no like something in between, even though you can have unwrapped texture where you have parts that are metallic parts and parts that are like non-metallic, for example plastic or glass, or things like that. So specularity also, it plays an important role, because it's again the reaction of light. So if you want to create a mirror, because specular means like mirroring, well in that case, if you want a mirror, the material needs to respond to the light with a really concentrated beam of light. So if we look for like diffuse and specular, you can see here we have some representation of the light hitting a surface. Now, if the surface is nice and neat and doesn't have defects, we're gonna have like a mirror. Otherwise, if we have normal and roughness maps and diffuse maps, they're gonna scatter the light all the way all around, so it creates the diffuse effect rather than the specular effect. But we're gonna see this in action in just a minute. So specular is also related to roughness and glossiness again. So the combination of the various parameters, metallicness, specular, roughness, glossiness, they give you like metal or mirror or plastic, whatever. So you can create basic parameters, or you can create the material using textures. And that's the more realistic way. And you can look for packages with all the textures in it. But in this case, I want to show you quickly Polyhaven, which is a website I frequently use. And in Polyhaven, we find HDRIs, textures, and models. Now, for the materials, we need textures. But also, we can give a quick look to the model. You can import the models in your 3D application from Polyhaven. And just to show you quickly, if I see here, this model has what is called an unwrap texture. So we cannot use this as a pattern. We cannot repeat it. We cannot use tiling in this, but we only can use this once. This is the way we can use unwrap. But it's really specific, and it has a lot of details, and it makes the object a lot realistic. And this is what it's used in advanced 3D models. Now, for the textures here, in the materials area, we have textures. So we have materials on the left. We can go in the category. We can look for, let's say, a wood. And we can also narrow the search if we are like indoor or outdoor, if it's going to be a floor or a wall. So I'm going to go for this diagonal. And here you can see the texture is pretty different. Now, this is a texture that can be repeated. So this is when we talk about tiling and repetition. So with a small texture, we can cover large areas. And so here we can choose the resolution, which could be 1K. It doesn't need to be too high because we can repeat this many, many times. Of course, if you get high resolution, you have better results, but they're also going to be heavier. So seamless texture. If you want to search the texture on the web, make sure they're seamless, so they don't have cuts between the others, so they can be repeated and they can be used for the tiling. And without seeing the actual cuts between one tile and the other, unless you're actually creating tiles. So you have these two types: unwrap texture, which is used to not repeated, is used to mark and get specific areas of a 3D object. And then you have tiling. And then you have HDRIs. HDRIs are used for environments, to create fake environments around your scene and make it look more realistic in terms of reflections and lighting and background. And all of this can be found in Polyhaven. Now, if you're interested in creating unwrap mapping and more specific materials, more advanced materials, you can check the Substance video course in the channel, and you can work on specific objects, and you can create also architecture and tiling. So you have many options in Substance. If you like more to sculpt and paint, you can use ZBrush, and you can check the ZBrush video course again in the channel. And also similar to ZBrush, we have another course, which is 3D character design, again in JBD Tube channel, explain how to create models and textures and mapping, unwrap mapping, etc. And also Matbox, if you are an Autodesk user, that's also an option. So let me go back now. Let me close these windows. I'm going to go back to the material we found in Polyhaven, so we can download it and apply it in our scene in ENSCAPE for Archicad. Again, this is just an option. You can take the textures from any website that you like. So 1K is going to be the resolution. Here we don't need the Blender file because we're not using Blender, so we're going to go into zip folder, simple zip folder. Otherwise, if you use Blender, you're going to go for Blender, or GLTF, it's like 3D object. But we don't want 3D object here. We just want the material, so I'm going to turn everything off. I'm just going to create that material right away in